Hey everyone, welcome to Talks of Thailand. My name is Jon. Today's story is about a man who says he scammed himself. So I can't wait to see what you guys think of this story because it's quite different to normal. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, give the video a like, and let's get in to today's story. I got very used to the taste of Chang beer from my first night in Thailand. I'm talking about the real Chang, back when it was the brown bottle, 6.2% Chang that made Thailand. I considered, at the time anyway, that I was one of the lucky ones, because I believed that I had found a country that was so unique and so different to anywhere else that I had ever been. My first night in Bangkok, I hung around an expat bar known as Cheap Charlie's. It was one of the most exciting places to go, beers for 60 baht, which was less than £1, and you'd run into characters from countries from all over the world, but mainly from the West. People who seemed to be the sorts of people who were rejected from back at home, yet in Thailand they were able to reinvent themselves and be something entirely different. The more I went to Cheap Charlie's, and this is skipping ahead a bit, I ran into lots of people. A Thai guy whose family owned the street, or some of the street, Sukhumvit Soy 11, where Cheap Charlie's was located, talking about how his family gave him 1 million baht a month, and all other sorts of characters that came and went. My initial impression of Bangkok when I first arrived back in the early 2000s was that it was a melting pot for all the rejects from back at home. Not rejects in an offensive way towards those people, because I would pass myself off as being one of them, though how do I describe it? People that said no to the Western world that was changing so considerably around them. People who saw this well before the current crop of people seeing the same thing, and the stories exchanged between those people were always so exciting and different and more unique than the stories you would share with people back at home. On my first night there, I remember speaking to a guy who claimed to be ex-Special Forces. He was talking nonsense. That same night, I was speaking to a guy who claimed to be a gem dealer who was married to the daughter of a Burmese general. He too was caught talking complete nonsense. I found out later, much later this was, that he was actually romantically involved with a ladyboy. What I'm trying to get across is that first impression of Thailand, based on the people I spoke to and the things I saw, was that it was a place where people who didn't fit in at home could fit in. A place that they could mould in their own image and live their own way, and that really was Thailand in the early 2000s. It got me thinking that this could be so much more than the holiday that it was meant to be. Looking at the people moving to Thailand today, I see videos all the time, people jumping on the Thailand bandwagon, making videos about sandwiches from 7-Eleven and how they discovered something unique, yet not understanding that what they discovered was discovered by people decades before them, when it was more special, when it was more about adventure, when it was about seeing something different and going into the unknown. Moving to Thailand today, I believe, is quite pointless because it's been there, done that multiple times over. I was only going to be in Thailand for 2.5 weeks on my first time there, though I was already sold from the moment I stepped foot in Cheap Charlie's in Bangkok in the early evening, and I was going to be spending some of the time in Bangkok, some of the time in Pattaya, and I also had plans to go to one of the beach places that were quite popular, yet nowhere near as popular as they are today. Although I never actually got around to that. I'm from the UK, and although I didn't know it at the time before I left for my holiday, I was actually living in a cage in England, which is quite different to how I felt after I got back after that Thailand trip. I did feel that the UK was being torn apart by the left-leaning lunacy, the liberal nonsense and everything that went along with that, and this was back in the early 2000s, where most people didn't seem to see it. Perhaps I was already ahead of the game, given the state of the country today, though that's not really about Thailand or my Thailand story, so there's no point talking too much about that. What I am trying to say is that first night was one of the best nights of my life, making me understand things that I never understood before. The second night was equally as good when I ventured a bit further afield, going to the famous Nana Plaza along Sukhumvit Soy 4. That was an experience that I still remember to this day. The amazing bars, the girls, and everything that went along with that situation that you can't describe accurately unless you actually go and experience it for yourself. You have to remember that we didn't have the internet in the same way that we do today. We didn't have the ability to share our experiences online for everyone to see and watch other people's experiences. You're literally going into the unknown, and it was going into that unknown that attracted me to Thailand the way it did. I went to Pat Pong too, which was alive and kicking back then. I found out that that street belonged to the same family that owned it for generations. It was originally farmland that a Chinese guy bought who came over before restrictions on foreigners were as perverse as they are today, though he came over, bought that land, and now the family owns this famous nightlife area. Pat Pong was actually great back then, because that was where you had more of the famous shows that people liked to talk about. Think Ping Pong Situation, which you didn't really see in Nana Plaza or Soy Cowboy back then, at least I didn't. I was just falling more in love with the country, the experiences I'm having, also coming to the understanding that this is where I actually fit in more than I fit in anywhere else. Having been on holidays countless times to other countries up until then, I never had that same kind of eureka moment as I had in Thailand. By the time I left Bangkok a week later, down to Pattaya, I hadn't come to the conclusion that I was going to move to Thailand because I was just living in the moment. It was when I arrived in Pattaya and just how extreme things were there, even in comparison to Bangkok, that I started working things out in my head to try to tell myself this is where I need to be. I need to be here. I don't want to be here. I wouldn't like to be here. I need to be here. My first day in Pattaya was better than all the days I had in Bangkok put together, and the days I had in Bangkok were each the best days of my life on repeat. That's what I'm trying to say here. I was 43 years old at the time, which was me feeling very old. I'd just been divorced a few years before that, lost custody of my child, going through a depression, working a job that I didn't mind if I'm being truthful, though it wasn't something that I wanted to do forever. I was just kind of existing in a way, not living, existing. That first night I went to Walking Street in Pattaya, and I see videos of Walking Street today, and I'm almost in tears looking at the state of it in comparison to how it was. How it was what it was meant to be, and what it was meant to remain. What it is today is just a disgrace, and I believe that it is Thailand in a nutshell, selling it short at every single angle to anybody with money from wherever they're from. While those people don't have the right to come and live permanently in Thailand, or do they, though there always will be restrictions in place, I believe Thailand didn't need to open up to countries that weren't your original sorts of tourists, because they behave in different ways, they do different things, they act in different ways. I find it really perverse that Thailand has gone down that path of allowing people in from countries that are themselves from tourist destinations that people from where I come from used to go to before they left. That's just my opinion. I know some people would disagree with that, and that's fine. What Walking Street was like when I went first compared to today, it's nothing but a sick joke. It was actually in a bar down Walking Street where I met this girl who was quite different to the girls that I'd met in Bangkok. I found that the girls in Pattaya seemed to be a bit more open, a bit more adventurous, and a bit more desperate in a way, yet not a bad way, in a good way. Whereas in Bangkok, the girls seemed to gravitate towards that big city feel, in Pattaya, it was just there for one thing and one thing alone. This girl, she had tattoos that I still remember, and I really found that attractive, a couple of piercings, and it was one of those, she's 23, I'm 43, though I'm actually really liking the ability to be with her more than all the other girls I'd met in Bangkok, which were great, don't get me wrong, but this was different. I found that the next day I'm going on an excursion with her and she's coming with me. We're looking at this famous attraction quite south of Pattaya, though still not too far away. You've got to remember back then, you didn't have all the smartphones and everything, not people taking pictures everywhere. It was more interesting, it was better. You didn't have tourists from all over the place. You had them, of course, though in lesser numbers. I think that I was just so attracted to Thailand, and this girl that I met was making my Thailand experience even better and even more unique than the other holidays that I'd had in my life. While she spent a few more days with me, then we went our separate ways, and I wasn't thinking about contacting her again for anything serious. But it was this time that I spent with her, and the remainder of my holiday which I spent in Pattaya. I didn't even venture to any of the beach places because I was having such a good time. It was the time I spent in Pattaya that made me come to the decision that whatever happened, I needed to move to Thailand as quickly as I could. This was 2002, which was a very long time ago now. If I look back on my life since then and the things that have happened, it's a roller coaster ride of emotions, and one of those situations where if you wouldn't have spoken about it or thought about it or even understood it, you wouldn't believe it. If you didn't live through it, you wouldn't believe it. The things I've seen, the things I've done, and the experiences I've had, I think by sharing my story, it's a way for me to relive the best parts of my life, yet kind of come to the understanding and to the acceptance that things went wrong and things went right, and things may be eventually put right. It wasn't without effort and hard work that got me to where I am today. When I returned home, this was coming up to the end of 2002, I was a different man entirely. I was missing Chiang Beer, really missing the experiences I'd had, missing the girls I'd spent time with, and missing everything about Thailand. Again, you have to remember, back then, Thailand hadn't sold itself short. I have to keep saying that. It hadn't tried to become something it wasn't, and I think that's happening today in Thailand more than anything else. Thailand is trying its level best, trying its damnedest to be something it's not. It wants to be known as somewhere that attracts wealthier people as opposed to the backpacker sorts, as opposed to the budget-conscious traveller that Thailand was built on. I think that's very disingenuous, because Thailand was built on being a place that was for a certain sort of person. Okay, you got wealthy people going there too, though that wasn't what Thailand was for. Thailand was meant to be what it was. I suppose I just always thought that the gap between where I was from and Thailand would remain the same. So, if Thailand goes up, my country goes up. I didn't think the gap would shrink. I didn't think that Thailand would do what it did. I suppose no one can guesstimate what's going to happen as the passage of time goes by. Back at home, I go back to my house, I go back to work, though I'm restless, I'm on edge all the time. I'm checking the clock, wondering what time it is in Thailand. I'd even set my watch to Thai hours, and it was kind of the centre of my universe. I'd only been there for 2.5 weeks, though nothing else mattered. Nothing else seemed to give me any sense of purpose, and all I'm thinking about is going back. I had started thinking about living there, though that was just something I felt was a pipe dream, like something that wasn't possible because, again, people didn't work remotely online. People didn't take advantage of what was available today online to be able to work in different places. That was something that wasn't even on the cards for me, and it wasn't even a thought. What to do there, to live there, was one of those things. I have no idea what to do, because I didn't have enough money to retire. I think I had, probably, if I sold everything, about £50,000, which back then was more than it is today, though nowhere near enough to retire. Close to 4 million baht, given the exchange rate was a lot more favourable back then, but even still, while that may have been enough to buy a decent condo back then, it wasn't enough to do more than that. Maybe buy a condo and live for a year and try to work something out. Again, I wasn't thinking about living. I was thinking, though, about going back for another holiday. That's all I could think about. I booked my next trip for early 2003. I can't remember the month. It could have been April or May, and I just lived in a trance, wishing I was in Thailand, yet I wasn't wishing that I was in the bars, though I wasn't, and kind of just turned off the outside world in a way. I'm not sure if other guys have had this happen to them or felt this way, though I turned off the outside world and just tried to ignore my surroundings, forget about my surroundings, forget about what was going on, and just imagine Thailand and what it was going to be like there. I suppose I did that very well, because time's passing by, I'm going to work, I'm just existing, not spending much money so I can save money for the next trip. When I finally got back, I just felt this sense of calm come over me when we touched down in Don Muang Airport. I've heard other guys say this, and I'm going to say it too. Don Muang Airport, when you arrived there on an international flight, that was the real Thailand, I believe. When the international airport changed over to Suvarnabhumi, that was when Thailand was moving away from the Thailand I fell in love with, and that was such a long time ago even now. Yet, I always clung on to what I found originally, even though we can see the writing on the wall that things are going to change and get worse as time goes by. You still cling on to that feeling, cling on to what it was like, hoping that it's going to be like that again, yet deep down knowing it's not, but we can always dream. I touched down in Don Muang Airport and got a taxi straight to Sukhumvit Soy 11, where I was staying at a hotel right at the end of the street. You didn't have as much choices of hotels back then. You didn't have the Holiday Inn. You didn't have the other hotels that have sprung up recently around there. They were all the old school styles. Decent rooms, comfortable bed, they had a bathtub, and walking distance to the end of the street, and again, better in every way. I checked into that hotel. It wasn't booked, you just arrived and paid 800 baht a day. Again, that was just over 10 quid a night given the exchange rate. I headed out straight to Cheap Charlie's and ran into characters similar to the ones I'd ran into before. That same Thai guy that I'd met, who owned the street last time, or his family did, he was there, talking to people. The SAS guy wasn't there, the gem dealer wasn't there, though I met this Australian woman who had very short hair, living an expat life that most women didn't live back then, and she was a real character. I met a guy from Germany who we found out later on was doing lots of disturbing things, and let's leave it at that. This was as time went by and you develop friends. I'm going to get to that later, though I just fit in straight away. I felt like I was back where I belonged and back with myself, and Thailand just did that to me in a way that is very difficult to describe. I was only there for 2 weeks that time, a week in Bangkok. Every single day, I was in Cheap Charlie's for a few hours before heading either to the pool hall on Sukhumvit Soi 7, which has sadly gone, heading up to Soi 22 to that little bar area there, which has sadly gone, heading to the places that I'd been introduced the first time that I loved, and just living life like every day was my last. Spending time with girls like there were going to be no girls left on earth within the next week, and you had to make up for that. Back to Pattaya, back to loving that. I think it was on this holiday that I came to the conclusion that although I loved Pattaya as much as I did, it was Bangkok that I believed gave me the bigger picture and gave the overall thing that I was most interested in. It was also on this trip that I told myself, where in April or May, I can't remember, 2003, I need to get myself living in Thailand permanently by the end of 2005. That was the goal that I'd set, based on nothing really, the promise I'd made to myself, and that was what I needed to do, because nothing else made sense. 1.5 years to get yourself to Thailand. It was on my last night, I'd left Pattaya, one night in Bangkok, when I met a girl who I actually got her contact details. It wasn't that I liked her more than I liked the other girls that I'd met during that trip. It was that I was going home and I wanted a little piece of Thailand to keep in touch with, to get myself out of any depression I might find myself in at home. She was okay. I met her in the pool hall, the one on Sukhumvit Soi 7, which I really liked, new wave pool. I believe they've changed it to another soi, but it's not the same. They've got that huge skyscraper where it used to be, which is devastating to think that they're allowed to just rip up the heritage, rip up the history, and build these new flashy places that have no place in a country such as Thailand. They do what they please though, and life gets worse and Thailand gets worse. I met her there. She was called Dear, in fact, and it was quite interesting because I was staying in the same hotel, and she was talking about how she'd met this guy who happened to be from England, like me, and he'd been with her for a while, and then she found out that he was also involved with this girl from Laos. I'd never heard of Laos before. I mean, I'd heard of it, only in whispers, but people went to Laos even back then. Imagine what that would have been like. But apparently he was involved with this girl from Laos and another girl from Vietnam and her at the same time, and she found out. Because of that, she went to New Wave Pool. It wasn't one of those places where she worked in the bar. She went in the bar, played pool, bought her own drinks, and if she met someone, perhaps he's going to buy her drinks and things like that. It was interesting to talk to her, and we shared contact details. She had my UK number, I had her Thai number. Let's keep in touch. I head back home, and again, hit the same depression as I was in before, though I had the mission in place that I've got 18 months to get myself to Thailand. Regardless of what's going to happen, regardless of if something's going to go wrong, I have to get myself there. The days are passing by, maybe a week since I'd been back, and I hadn't once thought about calling Dear because it just didn't cross my mind. I kind of forgot about her, if I'm being honest. Yet one morning, about 3 or 4 a.m, my phone started ringing. The old Nokia that I used to have started ringing, and I roused from the sleep and picked up the phone, and it's Dear. Why, call me. Oh, I was going to call you soon, sorry. But she was calling me. She wasn't calling to ask for money, she wasn't calling for anything, she just wanted to speak to me. She said she had a good time when we met, and she'd just woken up, and she's going back to New Wave Pool today, and yeah, I knew what she was doing, I knew what was available to her, and all the possibilities, though she was talking like she wanted someone to talk to and a friend, and it was really interesting to have her call, and I couldn't go back to sleep after that, and I'm thinking about Dear for the rest of the day. A few more days go by, and I'm thinking, should I call her or should I wait for her to call me? And again, she called me, this time around 4 a.m. It doesn't matter what the time was, and I could be off by a lot. But she called again. Why call me? Again, I have to call you. I think after that call, that's when I started to actually call her, and she was calling me too, although I know, and she's telling me that she's, going around Bangkok trying to meet guys. She's telling me what's going on. It was as if she was confiding me away in being away and me in her. Although I hadn't come to a decision about how I was going to move to Thailand yet, it was always in the back of my mind that that's what I needed to do. And the fact that I was speaking to her, and I just had the feeling to see her again, it was one of those kinds of things that, well, do I go back on holiday again for another one, or do I just wait to move there? I got to the point where I just felt like, this was probably 6 months later, give or take a number of months, I just thought I had to go back. It was still in 2003. I had to go back. I booked for 2 weeks, went back, and I was speaking to her probably daily at this point, which was very expensive back then. We'd arranged that she was going to come and meet me at the airport. I was going to go to the same hotel on Sukhumvit Soy 11, be there for 2 weeks, no plans to go anywhere apart from Bangkok. It wasn't that I felt like I loved her. It wasn't that I felt like I needed to see her, though it just felt like she was a friend in Thailand and a connection to Thailand. It was the connection to her that I had in Thailand that made me keep contacting her as the time went by. It was like I had my foot in the door in Thailand by being in touch with her, and I think that's why I did what I did. Before I go on, talk about what happened during that time, I was slowly coming to the idea that I was just going to have to sell up and move to Thailand at the end of 2005, because that was the decision that I'd promised myself. I was working hard, saving hard, and I was doing the research that I could do, and the thing that kept coming back was just go and teach. You're not going to make a lot of money, but you can just about live on a teacher's salary. It was very different then than it is today, considering the salaries are quite similar to what they used to be. If you're teaching, at least your money's not going to go down, and you can look and explore other opportunities as and when they come. And that was what I was leaning towards, although I hadn't actually come to that conclusion yet. That was what I was thinking. She was there in Don Muang Airport waiting for me. We go in a taxi back to the hotel, and things happen that you'd want to happen, and it's like she's telling me all the things that she's done ever since I'd left. It wasn't like she had secrets. It wasn't like we were boyfriend and girlfriend. With her, it was like she liked me more than she liked the other guys. Was she doing the same thing and speaking to other guys too? Who knows? She wasn't actually asking for any money from me. I didn't send her anything. That was never a topic of conversation. She even said, I don't want any money from you. Don't think I'm trying to do that. I'll play you like that. She didn't use those words, though it wasn't like she wanted money. That was not what she seemed to be interested in. She really seemed to be interested in me. Perhaps she was interested in other guys too, but I will never know. It was quite a strange experience arriving and having her meet me. In a way, she was just there. Although I didn't know if I was going to spend a long time with her, or if we were just going to keep in touch, I found that she was just staying with me. We went to the hotel after I got to Thailand, then we went out together, we went to play pool, went to have something to eat. I'm tired, I go back to the hotel and she goes with me, and she's staying with me, and I'm not giving her anything, and she's not asking for anything. She's not saying I need to leave and go and work, or I need to leave and I need anything. It's just she's staying with me, and I'm not telling her not to. If she left, I wouldn't have cared. I'd have wanted to have kept in touch, but I don't know, looking back, what her angle was. She stayed with me though. She stayed with me for the entirety of that trip, those whole 2 weeks. I was speaking to her about my desire to move to Thailand soon, and she said, I hope you can. Would you want me to stay with you? I like you, she said. I hadn't really thought that far ahead. It wasn't like you hear other guys saying how they fall in love with a girl and he has to have her at all costs. He does everything to be with her and sends her money. It wasn't like that. It was like she was wanting me and not money. When I left after that trip, again, not giving her any money, knew exactly what she was going to do. She even said, when I'm not with you, I have to do what I have to do. And the thing was, I didn't care. She can do what she pleases. I really don't know what it was. It was strange because immediately when I boarded the plane to leave, I felt I didn't want to. I didn't want to go back. I wanted to be with her. Whether it was her trying to get me to have those feelings or not, I don't know. Because if I'm being truthful, I'd met a number of other girls on the previous times I'd been in Thailand who I probably liked a lot more than her. Probably that I found more attractive than her. She wasn't necessarily the sort of girl I would have ever chosen. She wasn't necessarily the owner of a personality that I would have ever chosen. Though I got on with her and we had okay times. It wasn't like I would have chosen her over the other girls, though it was like she'd chosen me and she was trying to somehow manipulate me in order to want her. And it was when I was leaving that I did feel like I wanted her. If I look back at those feelings, I can't actually understand why I did, because again, it was just perhaps not being with her that made me want her. I suppose that might have been her intention, though it wasn't necessarily mine. I go back home and call her immediately, telling her that I miss her and I really want to be there. She'd say that she missed me too, then she's telling me about her situation. She's going out that evening to New Wave Pool, she needs to try and make a bit of money. That was when I offered to send her some, saying, what if you don't? I'm hoping to move to Thailand by the end of the year. What if we kind of remain exclusive with each other? She said, not in a forceful way, are you sure? I'd be happy to do that, as long as you're okay. It was like she didn't want to force anything or push anything or pressure anything, and I said, yeah, I think I am sure. I think I like you and I want to remain exclusive. That was how she got me to send her money. By this point, I was just not being able to function properly at home anymore. I was not able to go into work and perform my best because she was in my mind now, as well as Thailand. It was only a couple of months later when I decided I just had to go to Thailand right now. I don't care about anything. I don't care about the future. All I care about is right now. At this point, I'd managed to save up a little bit more money, though it's still not a lot. Probably, and I'll talk in Thai baht terms, probably about 5 million baht, which sounds like a lot in today's standards, though remember, the exchange rate back then was more favourable. Perhaps £65,000 was potentially what I had. That was equity in my house, the car I owned, and a little bit of savings. I put the house on the market thinking I was going to move to Thailand soon, but I decided I was going to go to Thailand whatever happened. Let's hope I have some success, let's hope something goes right. I had a degree which helped, I found, in terms of teaching. While I probably couldn't get a lot of money, I should get enough to cover the basics, and if I can work something else out, then I'll work something else too. I was speaking to her all the time while things were going through, and it was 2005 when I moved to Thailand permanently, and I was going to be with her, I was going to be with Dear. Again, I scratch my head as I think about why I was going to be with Dear, because again, I wouldn't have chosen her. We kind of just stayed together, and she kind of, I believe, manipulated me to believe that I did love her and like her, when perhaps I probably could have chosen somebody a lot more suited to me. When I arrived there to live, going to be going back to that same hotel for the time being, we kind of took things to the next level. I don't know how I can describe this in a way that doesn't come across as crude, though before I was with her, let's just say you would go into 7-Eleven and buy some of those things that are situated next to the counter that you use to remain safe at all times. Though it was like now we were more serious, and that wasn't something we were doing. I think that's the best way I can skip around saying it directly, while hopefully people will still understand. We're being a lot more serious, less careful, though having a good time. While I hadn't looked into anything in terms of work for the first few weeks because I was just wanting to get out of my system the enjoyment side of things, I was now really serious with her. I got to the point when I told her that I loved her, and I wouldn't want to be with anybody else, and she told me she loved me. After about 2 weeks in the hotel, we're looking for somewhere to rent together. If I look back again, I have to say we're looking for somewhere to rent together, and I don't know why I was looking for somewhere to rent with her. Thailand was in front of me. The bars were in front of me. Excitement was on every street corner. Friends were on every corner. I'd been going to Cheap Charlie's lots of times. I'd go by myself, then she'd show up after getting ready later, and we'd go places together. I don't know why I was throwing everything I had together with her, because I don't think I should have done. It was like I was doing that, not knowing why I was doing that. We rented a small place up in Prakanong, very small, very cheap, only 60 quid a month or something, plus you had to pay electric on top, so all in maybe 100 quid a month for the place to live. Unbelievable how cheap it was. Again, remember the pound was stronger, things were better for Western expats back then. We lived together, then we don't really go to Sukhumvit very often as the weeks are going by, eating street food around the local area, going up to On Nut where they used to have a market, grilled prawns and beers. Probably, in the first month of that, I might have spent £1,000, which was a lot of money. That was 75,000 baht, or just under. That included the deposit, that included buying the TV and the fridge. Then you kind of think, well, Thailand is so cheap. I spent £1,000 in a month, having a great time with my girlfriend. It was, I believe, the times that I was having together with her, not necessarily the fact that I was with her, that made the fact that I found out she was pregnant a few months later, like an exciting thing as opposed to a scary one. After we'd moved in, I was spending maybe £600 a month, and I believe I was living the best life ever. We're going out every single day, again, mostly around the local area. We'd occasionally go to Sukhumvit, though not spend a lot. Now she's pregnant, she's not drinking. Well, that was when I thought it was time to find a job and try and find something as a teacher. There were so many agencies and so many schools that seemed to be lacking teachers, it wasn't very hard, and I found a job probably on month 4 of being in Thailand, maybe a bit shorter, though it was only paid around 30,000 a month, but it was nearly enough to live on. Again, Bangkok back then was cheap, Thailand was cheap. The people who say Thailand is cheap now are lying to you. Thailand isn't cheap now. When I say cheap, it's cheap for what you want. When I say cheap, I mean considerably cheaper, 20% of the price of home. Now it might be 80% of the price of the home, though if you want certain things it's going to be even more than that. Back then when I started working I didn't have a work permit, but I had a non-immigrant visa that I'd got back from home, and I'm with her. The more I'm with her, the more I'm telling her I love her and I want to be with her, and she's telling me the same thing. The more I'm feeling trapped in the relationship with her, because I don't believe I loved her. It was just like a relationship of convenience. It was like the thing that brought me to Thailand in the first place. It was like I didn't want to be with her, though I was, and I thought I did. I thought I did, and I thought I loved her, though it was very strange if I look back at that time. I am happy in Thailand. I'm not really going down in money terms because of the fact I'm working and not spending a lot. But about, I would say 3 months after we found out she was pregnant, she wasn't wanting to go out as much. She just wanted to stay in the room. Again, it was just a small studio room. You have to remember it wasn't a big place. I'm starting to go out more myself because I miss that side of things. I've got a few friends from work, really great guys who are teachers too. Again, kind of the adventurous sorts that you don't get in Thailand today. The people who went to Thailand for adventure, for something different. Not the people who jump on the bandwagon. Not the people who, for example, went to the West and took advantage of that and then believed that Thailand was for them. I see that all the time on social media today, looking at someone like, what on earth are you doing in Thailand? I just don't get it. Back then, though, it wasn't like that. The people you met were kind of similar to you in a way, the same creed, and I had a fantastic time with all of them. I was spending lots of time around Cheap Charlie's, speaking to all those characters that you would meet, and I'd develop friendships, and it was great. Then I'd go back to the room, not late, maybe 10 or 11 p.m, and she'd be there and she'd be happy. But I don't know what it was. It was like she was trying to use me for her life, and I was just going with it, though I was getting depressed and not really wanting to be with her. I suppose that was, the moment where I had to make a very difficult decision. I mean, do I continue with her, or do I do something else? I was actually too scared to do something else as much as I wanted to, and I will admit, I went to the bars a couple of times when she didn't want to go out and did things that perhaps I shouldn't have done. We weren't married, and we never would be, and it's not like I pursued this relationship, it was like I found myself in it in a way that I didn't necessarily want. Anyway, time's going on, and the pregnancy seems to be going okay. But it was, I think, 6 months into the pregnancy when we had some very upsetting news that there was a complication and things weren't going according to plan, and unfortunately she had a miscarriage, which was heartbreaking for her because she hadn't had kids before, and it was heartbreaking for me. A few days, though, later, I was out again, this time by myself, just having something to eat in a little place along Sukhumvit Soi 8 that I used to go to. I just had an epiphany like, you've just dodged a huge bullet there. Okay, she's upset, okay, whatever. But I kind of snapped out of this trance that I was in with her and came to the conclusion that no, we're not meant to be together because it's not right. But how do I approach that delicately? A week later she'd moved out. I'd given her a bit of money to make her a little bit okay with things. But it's like I'd had Thailand to myself now. I didn't have her constraining me in a way. Now I need to fast forward quite a long time. I remained single for a good number of years, teaching all the time, not saving any money though, not spending any money. Life is amazing. Thailand is amazing. I moved a little closer to the action in Sukhumvit, and all the way up until 2010, I believe this time, by this point, I had a work permit, and I had a better job. The salary was covering my living expenses all the way up until 2010, and I was just living every day like it was my last, and you could do that back then, you really could. I suppose the thing that I look back on and regret is that I proved that I could live in Thailand. I proved I could make it work. I proved I could live the life I wanted to live. I proved it was going to be good. But it was 2010. We'd already had the financial crisis, that exchange rates had differed, again, getting worse. But I wasn't paid in pounds, I was paid in baht. But Thailand was creeping up in price, and you were starting to notice when you went around Sukhumvit. Something that used to be 60 baht was now 100 baht, some places 120. Things had doubled since I'd arrived, and that was my first time going for a trip back to the UK since I'd been there. and I hadn't seen my child for a long time, hadn't seen my family. When I arrived back, I did notice that Thailand had caught up quite considerably since when I was there. I didn't think it was the direction of things to come though, which is the biggest error I made. I didn't think that. I thought it was just a temporary lull. I thought equilibrium would be reached again, because I think in the moment I point to, as if I'd known what would have happened, I would have moved back to the UK. But I thought things would reverse. Eventually, things will go back to how they should be, not knowing that it was going to be a continuous spiral of things getting worse in Thailand for foreigners, especially those from the West. I regret not moving back to the UK in 2010 when I went for that visit. But at the time, though, all I thought about was being back in Thailand and wanting to be back. When I did get back to the same job, they gave you paid holidays, which was great. They didn't do that for the Thai teachers, which I thought was quite strange. I got back to the same job, though I'm noticing that the lifestyle I'm living, I'm eating into savings, not by a lot to start with, though I'm eating into savings and I'm telling myself I can't live like this anymore. I need to do something else. I need to make more money, but what and how, I don't know. It was like I need to spend less money, and what was the options? I kept coming back to the idea that you've had your fun, you've been quite lucky given some of the crazy things you've done, you've lived a great life for the past 5 years, just maybe take it easy, settle down, and try to build an easier and better life for yourself. I moved away from Lower Sukhumvit to a place called Ratchada to start with, and then I moved further out to Ratchayotin, just close to the major Ratchayotin building. They didn't have the SkyTrain there then, which appealed to me more than the place does today. They built the SkyTrain everywhere, and for me, the SkyTrain from More Shit to Nana was enough. No more than that was needed, though they kept extending it and changing it and worsening the city. Again, I'm thinking, well, they're going to stop doing this soon, and maybe they'll rip it down and take it back to how it was, that was just a pipe dream that I should have known wasn't going to happen. I moved there and got a different job, which took me a few months, though an agency helped, which was quite close. I'm living a lot more local existence. I'm not going to the foreign areas or the areas where expats hang out in big numbers as much. There weren't many expats around where I was living. It was mainly Thai. Again, you didn't have people from China or other places en masse like you do today. It was just Thai and the odd expat from the West dotted around, and I really settled into that life quite quickly. I had the work permit, a proper visa, enough money to live, and I was doing that in 2011 and 2012, and I actually had a semi-serious relationship with a girl during that time. It was in 2012, when I was just going for my once-a-week excursion over to Sukhumvit or Patpong, wherever I liked to go, although Patpong, even then, was in decline. But it was in Sukhumvit when I was in the bars like I did weekly. This time I met a girl like I did, again, weekly, though I don't know what it was about her that made me think that there was something special about her, that there wasn't about any other girls I met. I mean, it's difficult to put your finger on why you do things and make the decisions you make. I was with her, and I just felt like I wanted her, I needed her, and the thought of anything else just wasn't interesting. Even though she worked in a bar, even though she had been doing that for a few years, I had to pursue her. I had to show myself as a good candidate. It wasn't like she was just going to say, yes, I'll move in with you and stay with you. It wasn't like that. I met her on Soi 4 and spent some time with her, and although I'd never done this before, I'd got many girls' contact details, I called her the next day, told her I had a good time and do you want to meet up later? She said, no, I've got to work. I can't come back to the bar. Can you come and see me? I said, and she said she needs to work. Of course, she was saying basically she would if there was money involved, and I told her that's fine. I asked her to meet me at Major Ratchayotin, and she agreed. She wasn't very enthused about it or excited about the prospect, but she was going to come and meet me, and that was good. That went on for a few days, and I was really falling hard for her. She was 26, from Lampang province, she had a son who was 4, and I was getting on in years, in my 50s now, though I just felt like I had to have her. I think the more days that I got her to come to stay with me, the more she was realising that I liked her, and the friendlier she was becoming, and the sweeter and nicer she was becoming, the more accommodating she was becoming. It was one of those situations where I'm seeing her, not every day, though most days, day after day for a month and 2 months, and I just felt like I wanted her to move in with me, and we made an arrangement for that, and she moved in. It was like I was really in love with her. I was really serious about her, and I don't look back and think, well, did she love me? I don't think she did. I think she just was playing the game as well as she was because she knew how much I seemed to care about her. Pretty much straight away I had agreed to give her 15,000 baht a month, which back then was a crazy amount of money to give a girl. Even today, I believe that's a crazy amount of money to give a girl, given how much you know someone is going to earn if they work in 7-Eleven. You've got to think, well, 7-11 minus a couple of thousand baht. That's how I always worked it out. She was getting like double 7-11 at the time, though I just didn't care. It was a big portion of my salary, and that meant my savings were going down a bit, though again, they were only going down marginally. They would have lasted years and years and years and still had money left. She was living with me, and time is passing by, and I'm feeling more in love with her. We're getting closer, and I actually proposed to her about a year after we met, and she agreed to marry, and we did everything the Thai way. We did everything the legal way, and we were now married. I was really happy, really content with the situation that I'm in, and was just living in the moment. I'd stopped going out completely to the places I used to go to. I'd stopped meeting friends. I'd stopped doing everything just to be with her. We'd go out together. There was a place on the corner where we used to live that had mugata, very cheap, very affordable. There were places close by that had Thai food, that had Thai food from all different parts of Thailand, and it was cheap. We'd go and spend 500 baht, and we'd share a bottle of whiskey and have a couple of plates of food after I got back from work, and I felt we were just living a great life. This is probably going on 2014 at this point, and my Thailand journey is progressing. My money probably itself started out maybe £65,000 when I arrived in Thailand. Given that I'd worked and spent savings, it was probably about half of what I had originally or just under. But again, it wasn't like I was concerned because life was good, life was amazing, and I just was living a normal life, yet not building anything for the future. I wasn't saving anything for the future, because before long I was going to be 60, and then, am I going to want to continue working forever? I wasn't going to get anything from home. I had no pension that I'd paid into. I had no family that might leave money for me. I had nothing. And again, it's only when I look back that I can't work out why I did the things I did. Because if you see your money going down by 10,000 baht a month, and you've got what was maybe 2 million baht, you think, step by step, everything is going to be fine, and it's such a long time before it's all gone. It's like I completely forgot about the prospect that I needed to retire at some point, completely forgot about the idea that I need to work forever. But you can't work forever. There comes a point in time when your body fails you and you need to stop. Although I felt young for my age and active and happy, and I'm with my wife and we go away together regularly and we're living together and having a good time, I'm still working, and she's an attentive wife. She's everything you'd want in a wife. It was probably 3 years of us being together when she started making it quite clear that she doesn't want to live like this forever. She needs to progress. She needs to think about her future. I was understanding of what she was saying, though I wasn't in a financial position to do that. I didn't want to lose her because of the way that I felt with her, and that's when things started to go downhill. I mean, probably they'd gone downhill from the time I moved to Thailand, with the inability to make enough money and the inability to plan and save for retirement. When you're 45 or however old you are, you don't think about 20 years in the future. You don't think about 15 years in the future. You think about the here and now, and I was thinking about the here and now. It was only after my wife, who was my life, started to talk about this and started to talk about the problem that she was facing about her future that I started to come to terms and come to the understanding that I'd basically lived for the moment for so long that I had no future. We spoke about things at length. We talked about opportunities that we could have, and she's talking about moving up to Lampang and having a small house and doing a small business. But that would have taken everything I had, and there'd be nothing left over. I could get a job there, though it wouldn't make as much money. It's really difficult for me because I probably would have been happy to just continue living the way I was living, though it was her who kind of made me understand that I'd just thrown my life away. Not long later, we got divorced. She took a little bit of money that I gave her, and I had maybe £25,000 to my name, sat in my UK bank, not worth as much if I transferred it into Thailand originally. I was about 5 years away from 60, and that's when I had a kind of mental breakdown, because if I continued working the way I was working for 5 more years, I would have the same amount of money. I would have had nothing extra. I wouldn't have been able to retire. I think that's when Thailand kind of changed me yet again, back into a guy who worried about the future, and worried about being sensible, and worried about all kinds of things. Thailand kind of gave me a good 15 years, though it had ruined my future. That was what I was starting to understand. What happened from there was the very difficult decision to leave Thailand, based on the fact that it just felt like there was no future there. I had to leave Thailand. I went back home and just kind of rejoined the life that I left a long time ago. Fast forward up until today, I'm 2 months away from returning to Thailand for the first time to have another go, because I believe I have enough money to retire. The problem is I don't know if I want to, based on what I see about Thailand on the internet and on social media, because everything seems to have changed, everything seems to have got worse, and I don't know if I should go. Part of me wants to go, I want to have another go, Though will I go and have a look and return? I never know. The reason I wanted to share my story about Thailand is that I didn't get scammed per se. I didn't let someone take advantage of me per se. I went to Thailand and I loved Thailand, and Thailand gave me a great time. I met girls that I fell in love with and spent time with who didn't scam me because there was nothing for them to scam. But I scammed myself, and that's the truth of it. I moved to Thailand with not enough money to live forever. Worked a job that was just enough to cover my living expenses, living in the moment without preparing for any future that I might be able to have. There wasn't a future for me in Thailand, and that's what I want to say to anybody. If you're moving to Thailand when you don't have enough money, if there's nothing you can do to make enough money or save for the future, you don't have that future available to you. It's taken me about 10 years of working, probably longer than I should have done, to get to a point when I can go and see Thailand again. But Thailand's moved away from the Thailand that I went to originally. Even when I left, after coming to the understanding that I didn't have a future if I stayed, it had moved. So I owe myself a visit, though after that I don't know. Thailand can ruin you in many ways. You can be scammed, you can be ripped off, you can lose all your money, or it can steal your future. That's what happened to me. Thailand stole my future. Now I'm living that future. And if I hadn't made the decision to move back home when I had, I would be in a lot worse position today, and I see so many guys in that position. I sacrificed the previous 10 years of my life to give myself a future. I just hope I can enjoy the future in the place I want to be, but I don't know if I will be able to.